Welcome to
No Fucking Filter.
This episode is sponsored by Together We Co.
Together We Co. is a business management and virtual assistant service for photographers started by photographers.
They offer monthly subscriptions and standalone services including post-production, blogging, admin, image curation, website updates, and so much more.
We are happy to offer our listeners 20% off your first service by entering code 20fucking%.
You can follow them on Instagram at togetherwe_co, and you can visit their website at www.togetherweco.com and enter code 20fucking%.
Just to confirm, that's 20fucking%?
20fucking%, Lisa.
Sign me up.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Welcome.
Welcome to the NFF podcast. We have two special guests today from Risewell. Do you guys want to introduce yourselves?
Yes, and thank you for having us today. I'm Teresa. I'm the founder and the clinical director at Risewell Psychology.
Thank you. I'm Courtney. I am a provisional registered psychologist here at Risewell. And Teresa plucked me out of the Instagram universe. So. That.
We are so excited to have you guys. Well, actually, you're having us because for anyone viewing and watching on YouTube, we're in a new space. Thank you for letting us set up here. This is awesome. And we're excited to prick your brains because I think this is such a good topic that everyone's going to relate to. So we are going to touch on everything like boundaries, mental health, and burnout.
Yeah, we need some help in that area. A lot of it. And
Don't
I
we
know
all?
a lot of our listeners need some help. So I think you guys can do it. Hopefully give us some tips. And do you guys want to share with us a little bit about what you do at Risewell?
Yeah, that sounds great. Happy to do that. So we've actually just been chatting as a team recently about really getting clear on who we love supporting and working with. So this is a very timely conversation. For myself, I work with sensitive, self-aware, and high-achieving women to ditch the burnout in their life, to get unstuck,
Check.
and to maybe learn how to feel their feelings.
Okay.
So that's where I'm really passionate about working.
Yeah. So very similarly, burnout is huge for me as well. And for the clients I love working with, I love working with women who are not afraid of hard work. And they're kind of always willing to go, what can I work on? What can I reflect on? Very change focused and very much like, there's a pattern here I don't like. So recognizing that and willing to get uncomfortable. I think that's the big thing that I like to work with. Is it okay if I tell how we met?
Sure.
Can I tell you guys that?
We'd love to know.
It was about burnout. Okay. So I was doing my kind of final research project in my graduate degree on burnout in women entrepreneurs. And I just happened to be following Risewell Psychology and saw that Teresa had made a post about putting together a workshop for women experiencing burnout. And I reached out to her and I was like, hi, can I, I'm interested in burnout. Can I volunteer? Can I help you in some way? And now here we are. And we've been kind of collaborating together for like, oh my God, close to 2 years. Which is
Time
wild.
flies.
Yeah. So we're really passionate about burnout.
Yes.
Yeah, I think it's such a hot topic for so many people, but something that no one really talks about. There's sort of that like hustle culture. I know, especially in the wedding industry, it's like almost people are like on their social media being like, I'm so busy. And it's sort of like a badge of honor to be busy, but that just leads to being burnt out.
Absolutely. I would say that's, a huge contributor to burnout, right? Is this culture that we live in and the hustle culture. And just that people also don't recognize when we're in burnout, right? It's another big piece because it's so normalized.
Yeah. Well, maybe you guys can tell us what that means.
I want to know what burnout is, but also I think I just had a realization that I am in it full swing right now.
Okay. Yes.
So for the listeners that might not even know that they are experiencing burnout, what does that look like?
Yeah. Great question. And I think the simplest way to frame burnout is it is essentially when we are mentally, emotionally, physically exhausted, and that exhaustion has come about because of chronic and unrelenting stress.
Yep, a minute.
I feel that.
Yeah, we both feel that.
And it
Oh
can
my
show up
gosh.
in so many different ways. Yeah. What is it that's coming up for you that you're like, oh, that might be me. I might be in it
I'm
right
like,
now.
oh my gosh, I needed this. No, I'm just kidding. Let me unload on you. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah. No, I think just as wedding photographers, we work so much in such a short amount of time to really maximize the summer months. And I think we take on a lot and then don't realize that we've taken on so much until we're in the thick of it. And then life as well happens on top of work and everything else. So it can just all compile and then all be too much for people to like handle. But we push through, and that's probably probably not the best way to go about it. But we're excited to hear like some other really positive ways to work through burnout and manage our lives. That's it.
I'm curious what are some like physical, I guess mental too, but just some symptoms that can help you realize like, oh no, I'm in it right now.
Totally. Do you want to take that one?
Sure.
Okay.
Yeah, physically exhaustion. It's, you might be lucky enough to be getting your 8 hours and it still doesn't feel like enough. High, I guess, kind of increased sensitivity. So I hear a lot of irritability. I'm just way easier to snap. I just have way less patience. Mentally, we also talk a lot about a sense of cynicism that comes up. And like, no matter what you do, no matter how hard you work, no matter what boundaries you communicate, you're not going to get off the hamster wheel of stress. And then there's a real decreased sense of competence. Like, I don't even feel like I can do this anymore. I feel like no matter how hard I work, it's not good enough somehow. So it's that like exhaustion, irritability, competence, and cynicism, all of that constellation together. When I hear clients saying like, I just don't feel like anything I do is going to make a difference. And that's when you start to look at it as burnout, in my view.
Yeah. I'm also going to add in here the physical symptoms because I think sometimes those are the ones that really open our eyes to be like, whoa, something's going on here, right? We can overlook or push through the mental, the emotional. We're often like really good at that, but the physical ones are the ones that stop us in our tracks. And so physically, burnout can show up as like headaches or migraines, indigestion that's like ongoing, or when people talk about like chronically being sick, like they always have a cold or something like that. And I'll share, like, one of the reasons I'm so passionate about working in burnout is because I've had my own experience of it. And it was the physical symptoms that landed me in the hospital. And that is what was eye-opening, right? Like, if that didn't happen, I may not have stopped, right? And isn't that crazy that it has to get to that point where your body is like, if you're not going to stop, if you're not going to start doing things, I'm going to make you stop. Yeah. And that's exactly what my experience was. So I was in my master's, so second year of grad school, and I was working on my thesis, and I was doing this big, like, other research project on the side, and I was working at a practicum site that wasn't like super conducive to my mental health and well-being, like lots of hours, lots of stress, not a lot of support, and trying to do all of this and working to the max, like always working, not resting, not taking care of myself in any way, and being a bit of a perfectionist, like a high achiever. I wanted to do it all like super well. And so that just added stress for me. And I ended up with like really severe abdominal pain, which I went to the hospital for, and they ended up taking out my appendix. And a week later, I was back in the hospital with the same pain. And even though my appendix was gone, so then they were like, well, that wasn't your appendix. What was it, right? And they couldn't figure out what it was. I was admitted. I was in so much pain that they admitted me to the hospital. I was there for several days, and like I saw so many specialists, and everybody said like, we don't know what's going on, but like your pain is real. And so after a few days in the hospital of doing nothing, I couldn't work. I couldn't, nobody brought me my laptop.
Yeah.
They were like, no, you're in the hospital.
Good,
You're not allowed to
good.
have this. I was forced to rest and take some time off. The pain started to subside, and then I was able to go back into my life. But still, like I would have recurrent bouts of this pain. And at the time even after that, like I still didn't realize that's what was going on. And it was my family doctor who said to me, like a couple months later, like, how much stress are you under? Like what's going on in your world maybe that's contributing here? And when I like sat down to look at it, it was really clear to me that I was just pushing myself way too hard. I had no boundaries, no self-care, and it was hurting me. Yeah.
That's wild. And it's like, it's so true because you won't stop yourself sometimes. Like your body literally has to make that decision for you in order to.
The same thing happened to you with your appendix.
Crazy. Did yours rupture, or was it just
No.
they just took it out because
Yeah.
they thought
They thought that was
precautionary? Okay.
That was the culprit.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
That's insane. And then you talk about boundaries. I think like a lot of people might run into burnout because of that one huge thing. Because I don't know what boundaries are. I would love to know what those are.
Yeah, I think I've been on my therapy journey for a while, so it's definitely we're both recovering people pleasers, so boundaries are tough. It's a whole thing to start having those, and like it's not a comfortable feeling, and sometimes it feels easier to just go along with what you're doing than to have those hard conversations.
You nailed it.
Yeah.
That's why it's hard. That's why it's uncomfortable. And so much of, you might recognize a place in your life. If you're on a therapy journey, you might kind of recognize like, hey, this place could benefit from a boundary. I don't know where to start. I don't know how to have this conversation in a way that sets me up for success. And if it doesn't go well, then what? I think those are kind of the two big questions is how do I have this conversation? And if it doesn't go well, how do I deal with that? Because for so many of us, if it feels like there's a risk of creating conflict or even, losing a relationship because of a boundary, you start to kind of go, what's worth it? Maybe I can push myself. There's a theory about burnout that's called resource and demand theory. And it says basically that when our perceived resources, the tools, the support we have available, outweighs the demands we're experiencing, we can handle stress. When it flips, when our perceived demands are more than our resources, that's when we start to move down the path of becoming overwhelmed by stress and move towards burnout. I just kind of have to get in a little soapbox here. In our culture, women, and especially women of any sort of intersectional identity, anybody who's got a marginalized and oppressed part of their story experiences more demands and inherently has less resources. Women have the demands of family, of work, of friendships. Women just inherently have more demands in our society over and above anything else that might be in your life. And so because you just have this continuous demand coming at you, it gets really hard to feel like you can say no, because this is what every day in life in our culture is like.
Yeah.
Okay.
And do you feel like women experience more burnout than men, or do women just talk about it more, or we're more willing to like acknowledge it?
Mm-hmm. That is a great question. I would say that nobody's immune from experiencing burnout, right? I think we can all experience it. I think there's some characteristics and there's parts of our identity, as Courtney mentioned, that make us more at risk or susceptible to burnout. And so whether you are, regardless of your gender, if you tend to be a high achiever, if you tend to struggle with boundaries, not know what they are, how to set them, if you tend to be more of a people pleaser, perfectionist, like those are qualities that can inherently just lead you to a greater risk of experiencing burnout. And so certainly women, they do, as Courtney mentioned, right? Like they do face different stressors, different demands on them because we live in a patriarchal society, right? That's a big piece of it. And I think if you haven't read the book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle by Emily and Amelia Nagoski.
It's required reading.
They really,
Yeah.
they really bring that to the forefront of just how women experience burnout because of the society, the culture that we live in, and how it's just not conducive to women necessarily having their needs met in the ways that, maybe if you have more power in society, right, as a, somebody who is a male or a Caucasian male who's wealthy and well-educated, right, they would just have more access to power, more access to resources, conceivably less stressors.
Yeah. I remember seeing this quote once on Instagram or something, and it was like, I know successful women, I know productive women, I know creative women, but I don't know any relaxed women. And I feel that so hard. And just the difference between me and my partner, like even when I'm sitting on the couch, I'm not relaxed. I'm like, okay, I got to do that laundry and then this and he will be laying beside me and his brain is just clear. He's just relaxing. And I'm like, what does that feel like? So, and I feel like people say like, oh, you need to relax, you need to have a day off. But it's like, how do you even get there when you're in that stage of like, go, go, go? It's like almost stressful to take a day off and relax.
Yeah, absolutely. Or you do take that day off, but like your mind is still racing with all the things. So really, it's not a day off at all.
Yeah, exactly. So what's a tip that you can like, if you have a day off, how can you maximize that to like, kind of have a little mini reset?
Okay. I always like to kind of hit 4 things when we're talking about burnout. And then I'll kind of hand this back to Teresa to add in the beautiful 5th one. I'd say start with rest, even if you're not, laying in bed and sleeping for 10 hours, sitting in a chair in a little patch of sunshine, and if possible, not scrolling your phone goes a really, really long way to just let your head rest. It's about being present in that moment so that the spinning, busy brain has a minute to rest. So it's kind of like distraction might be helpful in there, but gentle. Rest doesn't have to be snoozy sleep. It can just be slowing down for a minute. And conversely, moving is so very important. I think most of us can appreciate when you're working out kind of hard for like 20 minutes, if you've got your heart rate elevated, you kind of stop thinking about your to-do list. You might just be focusing on breathing and making it to the next kind of milestone, but moving is so incredibly important to help complete the stress cycle. The book, oh my God, you have to read the book immediately.
We're getting it today.
Everyone go buy it.
Can't stress it enough. And then finding something meaningful. So this is just kind of connecting with like, why do you do this? Why do you do this job? Maybe it brings you joy to see people light up on their wedding day, and that does fill your cup. And maybe it's like sometimes it gives you flexibility in other parts of your life, and that's what makes it meaningful. But taking a minute to reflect on that is huge. And it's not quite the same as like a gratitude reflection, but tapping into what makes this worth doing really helps bring back the spark and the fire of it all. We're more willing to do things that are hard when they feel worthwhile and important.
Totally.
And it's cheesy, but it really does shift. The last one is just social connection, social support. The fact that you guys are working together, you're having these conversations is huge, because having someone to talk to about what's stressing you out, about your life, just feeling like, oh, they've got my back, even if I need to show up in sweats, and even if I set a boundary about, I only have 45 minutes, Lynn, please get out of my house. It's huge. And it makes you feel like you're not dealing with these burdens alone. And when you do need to slow down, there's someone there who can like catch you.
Just to touch on that last point that you were just speaking on, it's insane how much I've connected with Lisa, and it's so many similar things in our life, but also just having someone that's in the same field as you, an entrepreneur, just someone who knows the kind of hustle that's not like, it's just so different, right, than anything else. And being able to talk to someone that's similar in the same situation is like huge. So
Someone
I'm
that
just so
gets it.
grateful. Yeah.
You guys probably feel that too, right? I mean, you all know what your day looks like, whereas an outside family member might offer some quick advice, and you're like, yeah, cool, okay, I'll just take a day off. But yeah.
Totally. I would say that's one of the huge like benefits of working on a team like this, is that we come together, we have like intentional time that we set aside, and we come together and we, you know, support one another, because it's so vital in this work, right? Burnout is so high in our profession.
Yeah.
And so, you know, when you don't have things in place to protect you from that, right, the risk is that your career ends early in this field.
Yeah, I feel like, I mean, obviously photography and psychology are very different, but you guys take on everyone's emotions and absorb kind of all those vibes all day. And on a wedding day, we kind of do the same thing where
I was going to say, we shared that.
Yeah. So it's draining, because you're, you know, seeing multiple people crying around you all day, or their stress is heightened, or they're like really happy, and you kind of like, all of that filters through you. So Sophia's more of an extrovert than I am. We just talked about this, but for me, I'm like drained by the end of a day of like kind of being with all that.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I can like, let's go, because I got my social fill almost, and I'm ready for more. But
so that gives you energy when you're around people. And for you, Lisa, that's like draining, and you need to recoup after.
Yeah.
Yeah. So just even knowing that about yourselves is so important, right? Because that can lend itself then to, what kind of boundaries do I need to set in my life, right? If I know this about myself, what I need, that's the very first step before we can even start to set boundaries, is understanding like what our needs are.
And we cut you short. Sorry, what was the fifth point that you had?
Well, boundaries.
Oh, okay, amazing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What are boundaries? I don't know.
Yes, this is a piece of work I love doing. And what are boundaries? Oftentimes that's where I start, because either people don't know what they are, and then also like how do we implement them, right? So what are they? Let's start there. Really simply, boundaries are a way that we communicate our needs, our values, and our wants to other people. That's quite simply what they are. And they have a bad
I'm really
rap.
bad at communication.
Yeah. Well, and I think too, part of the reason why setting boundaries is so difficult is because they have such a bad rap, right? Boundaries are often associated with being selfish or self-involved, or, you don't want to upset somebody, right? They're like a negative thing, or a boundary has to be something that's like aggressive and mean. And because of those associations, like the negative associations we have with boundaries, it makes it hard to then set them, right?
Yeah, I'm scared. I'm scared to set boundaries.
I think even saying like setting a boundary kind of has this mental image of you're going to have to like have a really hard conversation, or you're going to have to like do a really big action. But is it that hard, or can you like gently, can you just quietly set a boundary?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay, so one of the things that we chatted about this morning when we were reflecting on boundaries is the kind of misrepresentation that it's about getting someone else's actions to change, having to control someone else's actions. And it's about, honestly, boundary isn't even the right word. It's about how we are going to manage our own actions. So it can be something as simple as, I'm not going to look at my phone for the next hour. The texts can wait. It can even just be simply just waiting to respond.
I love that, because I've always kind of had this perception that it is about changing other people's actions, but really it is just like, okay, what can I do for myself? And like maybe saying no to that person that's my action.
Yeah.
And that'll benefit myself in that moment, kind of thing. So that's
And that how they react to it isn't really your issue, right?
It'll feel like your issue.
Yeah.
Because
Easier
we're
said
relational
than
creatures.
Yeah.
We care so much. The feelings that we get based on how they respond, a lot of guilt, a lot of shame. Sometimes there's anger and resentment. Am I missing anything?
No.
Sadness.
Yeah.
Just good old sadness.
Yeah. I think it's those emotions, right? Or the fears that we have that prevent us, right? Even when you said like, I'm scared to set a boundary, that stops us from doing it because we're afraid of maybe how somebody will respond. And so I offer you this because we often think about like the negative consequences that could come from setting a boundary, but we never really give ourselves the opportunity to think about, well, what if I set this boundary and they respond positively? What if they're like, okay, sure. Right?
Yeah.
And what will that change for you, right? What difference will that be for you to be able to share what it is that you need in a moment?
Yeah, I love that. I think just it doesn't need to be so intimidating, right? But is there like baby steps for those of us that are scared? What are some like baby boundaries to kind of get your feet wet?
Yes. Well, can we back up and maybe just start with like the fundamentals of boundaries?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. And then you can take that and sort of apply it to all different levels of boundaries, because absolutely there's like little ones we can start setting. There's boundaries we can start setting with ourselves, with other people. So I like to sort of share the tips around boundaries. The boundaries are our needs, right? Our expression of our needs or what we value in this life. Boundaries are kind and they're firm and they're really clear. We're always using I language, and the focus is always on what we are going to do. So as soon as you notice yourself using you need to, or like you, that might be a cue that it's not a boundary that you're setting. It's you maybe trying to control somebody else, which is not a boundary.
Okay.
So staying with that I language and really focusing on what you're going to do, how you're going to respond. And that we don't move into a whole lot of like justification, that we can just, be clear and share what it is and not get into all the nitty gritty of like defending our needs or what we value.
I struggle with this.
I'm not apologizing.
Yeah.
Struggle with that as well.
Yeah.
It's quite like, I don't know about you, Lisa, but like I'm always like putting out a whole story and like explanation why I can't be doing something at that moment just for that person, because like I feel like I have to explain it and stuff. So it's like I feel like my husband has really helped me with like creating really great communication and like moving forward, and it's like I'm so thankful for him because he's just like, you don't have to explain it, just say yes or no. And I'm like, what? That's weird. I don't know, like why, but like you need to know. like but yeah, that's such a good point.
And I'm curious about that. Can I ask you a question around that?
Yes.
I'm curious what you're hoping to get in providing that justification.
Some understanding from the other person, just to be like a little bit more, okay, that no is justified kind of thing.
That they'll understand
Yeah.
your boundary.
Yeah.
Yes. Totally. And I think that's the ideal, right? We want people to understand and we want people to be like, of course, right? Like, yes, of course. And I think there's a lot of people in your life probably that would be like that. They would understand, they would respect it. And there are other people who might not, and they might never.
That's a hard one to like know, like kind of come to terms that there are going to be people in your life that you just ultimately can't have that reaction from, like a positive reaction. Yeah, crazy.
It is hard.
I think we feel that for the most part, all of our clients are really amazing, but we feel that with clients, like some people don't like the way they look in photos. And it's that realization, they'll come back with like a million changes, like, oh, can the color's weird or the whatever. And it's kind of coming to that realization for us is like, they're never going to be happy with it. So it's like kind of shutting that down. Yeah. Do you feel that? I know that we both have had instances of that. Yeah.
And would you say that's the majority of your clients or more of
No.
minority?
It's rare.
Yeah.
But it's not.
But it is a struggle that is something.
You have to remember, it's not like, this is what we are always telling ourselves is, you know, it's not that we are a terrible photographer or we messed up. It's really, it's not about us, honestly. It's about them. And it's hard, especially when you're first like new in the industry, to receive negative feedback.
Yeah.
I think being in a creative industry and like an entrepreneur, we're just like, it's hard. We're always our own worst critic. We're really hard on ourselves, and there will be days where we're like, wow, we suck. But then we're like, oh wait, no, we're actually amazing. Like, and we always have that self-doubt, and scrolling Instagram, you're always like thinking of the other person and like comparing, and it's a hard one, but ultimately it's like we put our work out and like our clients find us, and then there will be some clients that we just can't make happy ultimately.
Absolutely. And I think, maybe that's an instance of like communicating what it is that you are willing to do, like what boundary you've kind of set, like how many revisions or like to what extent, right? And being maybe upfront with that so that people know ahead of time, right? That's a way of communicating a boundary, right? This is the agreement, this is the expectation, and you won't make everybody happy still, even when you do that.
I think that's something we've learned over the years, just business wise. I mean, personal boundaries maybe are even harder than business stuff, but kind of putting it all out there in the beginning are just less conversations and less back and forth you have to do with your boundary later. Like for me, I'm on my Instagram, I'm pretty like upfront about what I'm going to touch up, what I'm not, or like what I offer throughout the day, and so are you. So that kind of sets the expectation, and we just hope that people that align with that are the ones that find us, and it's a conversation that is sort of like eliminated later on.
I think you kind of touched on something really cool, which is that sometimes if you're not really comfortable identifying and speaking about your needs, it might be easier to kind of put it towards a third party or a third entity. Coming full circle back to burnout. If you go so hard in your business that you are stressed and tired and exhausted and can't catch up, the next stressor that hits you, you're not going to deal with as effectively. And this is where that burnout cycle starts. It's, okay, now I'm stressed. I'm not handling the next thing as effectively. So I have to spend longer on it. And now I'm more tired. And then the next thing and the next thing. And this is how we get the chronic stress cycle, is by not having that boundary in the first place.
Right.
And I'd like to share the word capacity with you guys. When we say, I don't have the capacity for that, sometimes it might sound weak or not good enough, or like I'm not smart enough or clever enough, or whatever messages we send. But you're allowed to be a human.
Yeah, I actually kind of love that. And I just said it in an email the other day, and I was like, yeah. It sort of offloads like the personal, like, oh, I'm too busy, I have this going on. But just saying that one sentence kind of like clears it all up.
Yeah, because capacity isn't about willingness. It's about capacity. It kind of it weirdly makes it like more neutral.
Yeah.
Even in, we don't want to challenge the identity that you are an entrepreneur and kicking ass. And that's all great. Saying I don't have capacity right now doesn't challenge that. It makes you smart and strategic with your resources.
And it's something that you don't really have to explain, I feel like. And it could mean a lot of things, like your schedule is full, or like mentally you don't have the capacity, or whatever. Yeah. I'm saying that all the time now.
For photographers during busy season, this will happen a lot. We will have a lot of sessions building up. Burnout hits us in the summer. Like that's when it hits us. What are, like, if for photographers specifically, like, if we're like running late, here's a little scenario for you. Okay. So if we're running late to send a session and it's just like stress on us so hard and we're just not going to meet our deadline, what would your guys' suggestion be to like move forward in a productive way and manner?
That is such a great question. Do you have a thought?
Yeah, sure. I guess I have two thoughts. One, I have a response for you, a potential response. But before that, I guess I'm curious about how did you come to be in that place?
Saying yes to too many things in the winter.
Okay.
Not taking those boundaries.
Not scheduling enough time and taking on too much. Probably,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay. So not having enough time, taking on too much.
Hypothetically.
Right. Hypothetically.
We're not. We're
Okay. So maybe that's just a place you want to pause and reflect on and just take stock of, like, is there something maybe that I can do differently? Can I set myself up in a way that I can do this sustainably going forward, right? Just sort of a reflective question to move forward in your business. And then when you're actually in it, you got to deal with it. So what do you do then? And, I think just being really clear about, unfortunately, I'm unable to make this deadline, right? Taking accountability for it. I apologize for the inconvenience or for the delay. And then part of that accountability would be to also propose something different, right? So how are you going to sort of work to make it right? Maybe that's just proposing a new deadline. Like, I'm going to have it to you by this date, and that's going to allow me to really put the time and attention and make it a really high quality, quality photos for you, rather than rushing it, right? Or maybe it's something else that you want to do to take accountability for that. But being clear and upfront, I think is important.
I love those two because one, it's working towards, next year, hopefully taking some like reflective moments and trying to see what we can do better so that we're not constantly burnt out. Because living in a world where, could you believe it? Okay, living in a world, a summer where we're not burnt out, like that would be amazing. Like, and we could try and do it. let's maybe have a reflective moment after this, Lisa. We'll write down some things because if we really stuck to it, I think we could maybe avoid burnout, right? And like try to at least, right?
Yeah.
Going forward. But and then the second point of like the action, just like communicating to your clients is so big because a lot of the time I think we'll just like shut off and we'll just like try and just like, okay, like they haven't said anything to us yet, so we're just gonna like keep working on stuff.
They're, like eating away at you.
Exactly. So we kind of just need to stop your head from spinning and like send that email, and then you have a new deadline. And I think 9 times out of 10 our clients are quite open to a couple, like they're so flexible and they're nice and they're waiting for us.
Has anyone ever yelled at you when you no one's yelled at me.
No, we've lucked out. We've had really understanding clients of like things running late because ultimately we are human and things happen, and I think that's the one thing that we don't account for. So we are like, we're taking on so much during the summer and we're taking on probably a little bit more than we can handle, but then we don't account for the other things that are out of our control, which are life events and things that we didn't think about.
And there's sometimes this message of if I kind of admit like I need a minute, does it compromise the identity that I've built, that I am this badass, crazy hard worker? We don't necessarily want to create that feeling of conflict within us. Part of that conversation, that moment of accountability, is like that's uncomfortable for anybody. And so planning for it, coping ahead, is actually huge. Like, get your partner, get your hubby, get your best friend, get your dog ready so that when you send that email or make that phone call, you have something for comfort afterwards. It's okay to not feel good and not like it.
You can borrow
Plan
Harvey
to comfort yourself. Book a massage right after. Not that you would have time for a massage, but like comfort can be easy, right? Comfort can be, walk the dog, cuddle the dog, go for ice cream because there's a new flavor every month. Like it can have, for me, it's like, okay, Mom, I need to call you at 3:00 today. I have to do something hard at 2. I need you ready. It can be like planned to be uncomfortable. When you're ready for that discomfort, it gets so much easier.
I feel like that sort of applies to like the lead up for summer too, planning to be uncomfortable. So for me, it's like I got a house cleaner and sort of outsourced like some other things to allow, knowing that I'm going to have this busy season coming, like what can I take off my plate in other areas?
That's huge. Asking for help, accepting the help.
That's the tough one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just set yourself up when you know a busy period's coming. Because as an entrepreneur, right, you probably have cycles in your business, right? Times when you know you're just going to be busy, you're going to be pushing harder than other times. And I mean, I haven't cracked this either. Like, I don't know how to create like
we're all
total
talking a
calm
good
and
game,
balance,
but
right? I find that myself too. Like, there's just periods that are busier, right? My personal life is busier and work is busier, and it's like, blah. And I think what I take comfort in knowing is that our nervous system is built to sustain stress. Like, we are really built in such a way that we can experience stress, and it doesn't damage us, right? But what leads to burnout is the chronic nature of stress. So our nervous system is really meant to like upregulate, deal with the stress, and then come back to a place of calm and rest. Upregulate, deal with the stress, come back to this place of calm and regulation.
So you have to give it a break in between.
So you have to give it a break or know that there is a break coming, right? But that to totally avoid stress or to think that you're going to like find this ultimate plan of balance and you'll never feel stressed or overwhelmed again is not realistic. And also it's not necessary because we are okay. We're built to sustain that, right? We just have to remember, okay, if a stressful period's coming, like I know it, I can anticipate it. How am I also going to build in the things to bring my nervous system back into this place of calm, allow my system to rest? And that in and of itself can prevent burnout.
So what could some examples be of ways to sort of plan for that downtime or those moments to sort of bring yourself back down? Because I feel like if you don't plan for them, you're never going to take them. And then that's when that burnout that we're currently experiencing happens.
Yeah. Well, I like even what you said around I knew this busy time was coming and I hired some help, right? Because if you didn't hire that help, who would have cleaned the house?
Not my children.
You would have found a way to maybe fit it in between all of the things that you were already doing.
Yeah.
Right. So because you didn't have to clean the house, what did it maybe open up space for?
I think just knowing like personally, I work so much better in like a clean environment. So just knowing that's going to happen. And then I have maybe a short period of time where everything's clean and organized and I can calmly be at my desk and not have those like outside anxieties creeping in about how the house is looking and all that stuff.
Totally. So it kind of like eases some of the mental load.
Yeah.
Yeah. Which is like giving yourself a bit of a mental break. I think, there's no one right way to rest. It's about finding what works best for you. And that's part of knowing what it is that you need, right?
Yeah.
Is rest about getting creative and, doing something creatively? Is it about reading? Is it about silence? Is it about meditating? Is it about movement, connection? Like there can be so many different forms in which we rest and allow our nervous system to like come back to a place of calm. Just kind of figuring out what that recipe is for you.
The other part of that, this isn't going to make a ton of sense on paper, but having fun is actually good for our nervous systems. It brings us back to that kind of state of regulation after stress. So it's not just all like, okay, I need to block this time to snooze. It can be like, oh, I'm going to block this time to do something that really fills my cup with joy and maybe it re-energizes me. Just whatever your version of fun is.
Right.
Maybe your version of rest is karaoke on a Tuesday night. Time will tell.
Yeah. That's amazing. And then for people that are experiencing burnout and they're like not sure where to start, that's where you guys kind of come in, right? They can come and see you. And a lot of people don't have a person that they can actually talk to and stuff, right? So it's huge to
Absolutely. I mean, if people do think that they're in burnout or getting close to it, reaching out for support, like individualized support to, maybe work with a therapist to figure out like what are the changes needed in your life? Where do you have some ability to make some changes to support yourself? Interestingly enough, I often see people come into my office after being in a state of burnout and not knowing it.
Oh.
And it's other people around them that tell them.
Really?
And have noticed how they've changed, that they're not showing up in the way that they once did.
So if someone tells you you need to see a therapist, it's like a form of love.
Yeah, we can like gently, nudge the people that we love, right?
Yeah.
And let them know that we're seeing some changes and Do they need some support?
And I know you guys offer some really cool forms of therapy. Maybe you guys could share what some of those are. It's not just kind of what you see on the movies or TV, which is, laying on the couch and crying or whatever.
Yes, we do. So we do have different modalities that we use here. All of our therapists lean into a somatic and holistic approach to care, which means that we're really working with people on a mind, body, spirit approach. And we're not just going to sit here and like talk about your feelings or have you lay on the couch and cry like that. We actually have a therapist on the team who's a registered yoga teacher. And so Kelsey Moss, she brings in yoga and like yoga postures into therapy to support her clients. We offer walk and talk.
Yeah, that's the one I was hinting at because I love that.
So getting out in nature, taking the session outside, right, to be in nature, it has such a healing effect to be in nature and to connect in that way.
I feel like that's so much less intimidating too, maybe for someone who's just starting, like coming into the office and kind of looking someone in the eye and being vulnerable might seem a little scary to someone that's kind of just getting started. So I love that you could just go for a walk, you're moving, and it's not as like formal and kind of intimidating.
The other thing we do is we do a lot of community workshops. And so we recognize like not everybody has the ability to do therapy regularly, right? It can be expensive. It can be time consuming. We do workshops where all of us have really struggled to like hold back the content because we just want to give anybody who can come everything on a topic. You can't talk about boundaries in 2 hours. Like you just can't. So we can't talk about burnout in 2 hours.
Part 2 coming soon.
Yeah. Teresa has a very, very stellar burnout workshop that I can't like highlight enough.
That Courtney helped me co-create.
I'm a little biased. But it's so thorough, and it's like we just want to get this information into people's hands. Even if you can't go to therapy regularly, come to a community workshop.
Where can people find out about your community workshops? Sorry.
Yeah, so if you follow us on Instagram at Risewell Psychology, we'll post about any upcoming workshops, which September's around the corner, and we are going to be launching a workshop in September.
Amazing.
You can also
right now.
you can also join our newsletter. So go to our website, risewellpsychology.com, and just put your email in the newsletter, and we'll email you about any upcoming workshops. I should mention these community workshops are by donation. So we are not asking for people to pay. We're simply asking for a donation. And this year we've been committed to supporting the Pregnancy and Infant Loss Support Center. So anybody who joins the workshop, we just ask that you donate what you are comfortable donating to PILSC. And that's really our way of kind of giving back to the community.
That's amazing.
And do you have availability for new clients to come and see you guys in the office or online?
Yes, we do. We have a number of therapists taking on new clients. Courtney is one of them. So, and as September rolls in, there's a lot more availability in the schedule. So we offer daytime appointments, evenings, weekends, virtual, in person. We want to be really flexible with how we can support people.
Awesome. And do you guys have any tips for someone who's just getting started? How do you kind of find someone that you think you're comfortable connecting with, or what's the best process to like find your person?
Okay, well, the bad news is it's like dating. It's a fit thing. It's a vibe thing. You might see someone's picture and just kind of be like, I like the look of their face. They look like they'll get me. You might read their bio and be like, yes, I kind of want to, I want to talk to this person. I want to know what their experience has to say. It's a vibe. It's like dating. That's the best.
This is why photos are important, guys.
It's okay if the first person you talk to doesn't feel amazing. this is for you. It's your time. It's your money. It's your energy. It's okay for it to feel really good and to be picky about that. No therapist will be offended if you're like, it's not the right fit. It's better for everybody that way. Truly.
Yeah. I might just add, check out their bio, check out their photo. A lot of therapists are on Instagram now. So see if you can find them on Instagram. And we feature at Risewell, we feature our therapists on our page. And some therapists have their own pages too. So check them out and just get a sense as to whether or not you feel you can connect with them with that. And then most therapists will also offer a complimentary consultation call. So if you're wondering about a certain therapist after you've kind of read their bio, you can book in like a 15-minute call. We also offer video sessions as well, so you can like get the vibe of somebody too, to just chat with them, ask questions, let them tell you about how they work, what they could help you with, and see how you feel after meeting with them.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah. Date around.
It's dating. I had a consult with a lovely, lovely human who was like, okay, yeah, all the therapy stuff is great, but like, what do you do for fun? Who are you? How do I know I can trust you? And I was like, yes, ask me more questions. This is so great. So like, it doesn't just have to be like, what issues do you deal with? What your technique is? Because how do you know what's good and what's bad? It's a vibe.
Right.
Yeah.
One thing I think I'm curious about, as well I feel like a lot of people will be, is duration. How often is it just totally unique, or would you suggest like a certain amount of time to come in, and like how long?
You're not going to like this answer.
Forever.
No, not forever. I was going to say it depends.
Okay.
It depends. It's really hard to give a blanket statement for everybody because everybody is so unique. So we really try to take that into account, right? Everybody's needs. We appreciate that we work in private practice, which means it's, people paying out of pocket or having limited insurance coverage. And so we want to take that into account too and be realistic about your budget and what's feasible. And so we'll chat with you about that too, right? Like what resources do you have to put to this? Beyond even financial, right? Time resources, energy resources. And then we'll come up with a plan that works best for you.
And is there sort of like planning that a patient should do before coming to see you guys to make the most of their session? Like, is it a good idea to maybe have some topics that you need help with, or is it better to just sort of like go over everything that's going on in your life at that moment?
I think that we take a very biopsychosocial approach. And so if you come in, you go, I actually have no idea what I want to work on or what I want to talk about, but I think I should give this a try. I've heard good things.
All my friends and family told me to come.
Friend and partner told me that I should go to therapy because they think I'm burnt out. We'll kind of work with you to take a look at your whole life, your physical symptoms, the spiritual kind of component. Like, how do you do? And when I say spiritual, I don't necessarily mean religious. I mean, like, do you like your life? Do you feel like you're aligned with what's important to you? And if you are religious, like, we'll figure out how that plays a role, right? How to make it a tool. We take a look at the whole story of your life with you. We spend that first intake session going through all of that for that reason. So you don't have to know, like, here's my list of 8 things that I want to work on, and here's how I'll know when they're complete, because like feeling more confident is very hard to measure.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I love that.
I was just going to add to that, like, if you are the kind of person that likes lists and you want to write down everything, like, please do. I have some clients who come every single session with a list. And so however you show up, that's where we're going to meet you.
And lastly, who should go to therapy? Because I think I know the answer.
That's a great question. You know what? My response would probably be if you want to be here.
Okay, yeah, I like that.
If you want to be here.
Mm-hmm.
right? We know that we're just more likely to really give things a solid effort when we're invested and we're willing. And so if it's something that you see there being value in, if you're, thinking there might be something that you could use some support around, some help with, or somebody to just talk with, therapy can be a great option for you.
Yeah. I completely agree. I think you would think the answer would be everybody, but the reality is that there are parts of therapy that are really hard, and it's okay, again, if you don't have the capacity at this moment in your life to take on the work, because it's hard and beneficial, but it's still really hard. So it's the capacity thing. It's right now I don't have the capacity to do this, and that's just fine. If you do, great.
Amazing. Well, I feel like everyone's really going to resonate with this, and we need maybe we need therapy on the pod every once in a while, because I feel like we could keep talking about this forever.
I
But
would love that. Let's do a regular check-in.
Yeah. I think this was a good little sort of like slice into what you guys offer and kind of some quick little tips for everyone to take away. So,
Is there anything else you would like add that you want the listeners to know, or?
Nedra Tawwab, her book on boundaries.
I do have this book.
Is that what it's called?
read it?
I read the
Boundaries.
first chapter.
Yeah. The Burnout book by Emily Nagoski, and then Set Boundaries, Find Peace. Yeah.
List those in your
We'll
Yeah.
list them in our show notes.
Yeah.
For sure.
Spotify Premium has them on audiobooks. Like, go listen, read. If any of these topics are resonating, those books. Yeah.
You can use that to do on your day of rest. Sit in the sun and read your book.
I like that.
Yeah, truly. Yes.
And then where can people find you? I know you kind of mentioned before that you have your classes coming up in September. Instagram, website, anything else? Or do you want to repeat that for just anyone listening?
Yeah, so people can find us on our Instagram page, where we'll provide regular updates at Risewell Psychology, or visiting our website, risewellpsychology.com.
Perfect.
Join the newsletter.
Yes. It was a pleasure to have you guys and chat with you guys and kind of pick your brain about a couple things.
Yeah, so we've been alluding to this for a long time, and all of our schedules, as we know, are busy. So I'm so glad we were able to make it work, and thank you guys for your time.
It was our pleasure. Thank you so much for coming to our space. And next time we do this, I'm wearing my sweatsuit.
Oh, please do. And if you guys are just listening, you should go to YouTube, because the offices are so amazing. I feel like calmer just being here.
Walked in the door and I was like, okay.
I'm home.
Amazing. That's what we were going for.
It worked. Well, thank you guys so much.
Thank you.
We'll chat with you again soon.
Cool.
Okay.
This episode is sponsored by Tequila Vita. Tequila Vita is a Calgary-based brand founded and led by women with a passion for authentic agave spirits, sourced in Mexico and crafted in Canada.
Tequila Vita has two amazing cocktails in a can: a margarita with a smooth premium agave spirit that adds a subtle kick to every sip,
And a Paloma with a combination of agave spirit and fresh grapefruit that is lightly sweetened and tangy.
available in a 4-pack at Five Vines, Willow Park, Olympia Liquor, to just name a few. To find more retailers, visit www.tqlavida.ca. Cheers!
Thank you so much for listening and following along. It would mean the world to us if you could subscribe and leave a rating and a review. 5 stars only.
We come out with new episodes every second Thursday. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok at the NFF Podcast, and on YouTube at No Fucking Filter Podcast.
We would love to hear from you if you have any episode ideas or any crazy stories to tell.
We are always accepting new sponsorships, or if you'd like to be featured on the podcast, feel free to reach out. Bye.